What's up, agents, and welcome back to another Division video where we're going to go over a tipping scales build because it's brand new to the game, and really I want to talk about my thoughts and impressions after using it for a little while. Don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe, and let's get straight into it. So first of all, I'm going to show you what I have been running with. This is pretty much my go-to when it comes to tipping scales. We'll go through this very quickly with the backpack. Well, actually, first of all, we'll talk about the gear set bonuses. So we get 30% magazine size, which when combined with LMG magazine sizes already is actually pretty huge. We get 30% LMG damage, which is really nice. And then we've got throttle control. So shooting builds stacks to a max of 50. Each stack provides 0.5% weapon handling and 4% critical hit damage. We lose 6 stacks per second while not shooting. No stacks are lost if the enemy or any enemy is suppressed. Now, there's a couple of things to note here. The weapon handling is actually a pretty nice bonus if we're going to be using LMGs. It makes that reload a little bit faster. And obviously, it allows us to stack up a huge amount of critical hit damage. Now, there is diminishing returns here that is definitely going to play in. If you've seen builds that are, 300, 400, 500, 600% critical hit damage, they're not going to be hitting for anywhere near as hard as what it sounds like. Because when you start getting up into them huge upper realms, it is pretty easy to get there. But we've had things around. We've had talents around for a long time. Negotiator's Dilemma. We've had the backfire and things like that allow us to stack up a huge amount of critical hit damage. And, they are not game breaking. So this is certainly, in that same remit, the huge amount of damage is definitely not game breaking. With the backpack, we get the talent Snowball, increase the critical hit damage received per stack from 4 to 7, which in itself, again, is pretty huge. And on the chest piece, we can increase the maximum number of stacks from 50 to 75, which furthermore adds to the amount of stacks and the amount of critical hit damage we are going to stack up. I've got this set up with 58.5% critical hit chance and 117% critical hit damage. And I've decided to run the contractor's gloves because, to be honest, what I really feel like this build needs is, when you're setting it up, is as little critical hit damage and other damage stats in as many other places as you possibly can. And that's because we get so much critical hit damage from the actual talents themselves. There is just no need to put in any other critical hit damage anywhere else. Yes, okay, we still want to be at crit chance. Yes, okay, we still need a foundation for critical hit damage so that our initial shots actually do, some actual damage. But for instance here, Contractor's Gloves that gives us LMG damage and damage to armor, I think is a really smart idea. And the fact that you're putting into other stats that will then just amplify literally the critical hit damage that you've got. And the same goes here with the mask. I really don't think that running Coyote's mask is a really good idea with this build, unless you really want to go down the road with the team buffs. If you're going to go all out damage, to me it just makes more sense to run Tinkerer, because in this situation here, I can take 18% extra weapon damage, and I've got steady-handed on because, well, I've not been liking the fact that I have to reload, but we could put Frenzy on this as well, which I am going to do for this video, just so that you can see my thought process when it comes to this. Unhinged and Frenzy just being two of the top 2 for absolute burst DPS now that we've got the Tinkerer in the game. Obviously in the Tinkerer you can see I've got a crit chance mod. I've got this roll to crit chance, crit damage. The chest to crit chance, crit damage in the mod slot. The holster, crit damage. The knees, crit damage. The gloves you saw before, crit damage. And all that with a GR9 stacks us up to this. Now, you don't necessarily need to run a GR9 with this. I like running a GR9 when I run steady-handed. but I also like running the military MK46. Crit chance rolled here on the gun at the bottom with frenzy, but again, this might not necessarily be the wisest choice. You could actually cut this crit chance down here and replicate it with mods and run a rate of fire LMG instead, and you'll actually do more damage again because of them diminishing returns. Am I going to use this build enough for me to actually do that? I'm probably not going to farm one, especially if I happen to pick one up, a GR9 or a military MK46, then yes, absolutely, I might do that. But for the time being, I've not got one. I'm not wasting my materials in farming one. This is just fine. Now, before we get into a little bit of gameplay, I'm just going to show you my initial thoughts. This is actually pretty good when it comes to retaliation. The reason this is good when it comes to retaliation is there is a lot of high ends, especially if you do it in heroic. When you get the kill squad, you've got a lot of enemies that you can just pump the rounds into and build up your stacks really, really easy. And obviously, frenzy, adding that huge amount of rate of fire, just actually amplifies that situation, meaning that you can get up to your maximum stacks really, really easy. But also something else that's playing into this at the moment is the rate of fire bonus from the global events. So you can see here 30%, making it even easier. Now, when this comes to outside of this season and we don't have this, I feel like we are going to be reliant on rate of fire talent, or maybe, you know, just anything else that boosts rate of fire. Running rate of fire on the LMG is probably going to be a must, because otherwise it's just too hard to keep the stacks up because we're losing 6 per second, even if we try and play into it where we suppress a bad guy. And I'm talking here without really running the Bullet King. You could run the Bullet King and you have a bit of an easier time, but then we're losing damage and we're not able to run the Tinkerer. And we're kind of shoehorning ourselves into a very specific place, meaning that tipping scales really just becomes the Bullet King set. And I really don't want to do that. Although I am shoehorning myself into running Frenzy here and the Tinkerer, but this kind of works. You know, this is really good. Running this with Strikers, you know, I've been doing that. I've been running, you know, the same setup with Strikers instead of tipping scales, and it does an insane amount of damage. And even running the Strikers chest piece, I'm pretty much capped out at all times. So even without any survivability, we'll go to District Union Arena here. And we're going to put it on Legendary and we're going to go in. Now, I'm not going to recommend that you run this build in Heroic. I really feel like in any Heroic situation when I was testing it, the stacks just weren't high enough. Although, yes, it could in some situations, very specific situations, maybe a stronghold or something like that. You could put out an insane amount of damage. In the incursion, this thing puts out an insane amount of damage. It's really, really good. But in Heroic, it just never really gets going. And when it does, it's gone in the time that it takes to, you know, build anything up. Now, I would definitely be running something different here. If I was going to run global modifiers, we're going to have to talk about that very, very quickly. I would definitely be running Zealot or Sanitation just for the insane amount of damage. I'll put Zealot on, although it is very, very risky. I like running Rupert's Tier because we get the tanks, and especially if you're in a group, this is hugely beneficial. It kills them very, very quickly. Getting the chance to get hollow points is very, very good as well. And then you could put Compromised on here if you wanted to. None of these are actually going to be any good because none of them are actually for Black Tusk. But when I'm going to be against Black Tusk, the Batter Up one is very good because it absorbs a grenade, and you know what grenade spam could and can be like. But we won't really activate the global modifier for this benefit. We'll just give it a go and we'll see how we get on. Obviously, just remember, like I said before, I think I said before, you don't actually have to be hitting the bad guy to build the stacks up. That's kind of like why I like steady-handed. Where's that guy over to the right? But as you can see, it does an insane amount of damage. Is that going to be the minigun? And although then something seemed to go wrong, the stacks just didn't seem to build against the tank, which was weird. So off my MK46 magazine, I pretty much got halfway. And then as you can see, when I get Frenzy in, my problem being, there you go, I can suppress him there then, which kind of paid off a little bit. We'll try and keep him suppressed. But I'd rather be killing them than suppressing them, which is just odd. Oh, I'm gonna die.
Immediate medical assistance needed.
The rate of fire is actually insane though. Keep that guy suppressed.
Enemy is dangerously close.
And you see, it does do a good job, and the damage output is insane. But what we've got to think about is kind of what I talked about at the beginning. The ammo usage is huge. I have to have 30% rate of fire global modifier. I have to have frenzy. And you can kind of get away with not needing that survivability, because we are really, really powerful as well. He says, but we'll see what happens when Chungas turn up in a minute. As if that didn't kill him then. At this point, I really don't want to be suppressing then. Come on, come on. No heals, no heals. And you see, because we can put out them 1.4 million shots, you can do that insane amount of damage. So, yes, it's great for damage. It's great if you like to play the kill or be killed scenario. But it is very, very tough in keeping the stacks up. And you really have to play into it. And I think after this season, it's really going to struggle because we're going to be lacking that 30% rate of fire. But as of right now, this does a lot of damage. It works really well, but you are going to have to put that little bit of extra work in, getting this rate of fire bonus up. Now, if you get it to 20, are you really going to miss out on that extra 10? Probably not. But to me, this is the most powerful way to run it. And yeah, it just kind of works pretty well. I never noticed this here before. Has this always displayed like this? Am I tripping? Let me know in the comments down below. But that's going to be it for this video. It was a super long one. I've got a really special announcement coming to my channel later on today. So please make sure you've got that sub button hit. You've got the notifications turned on. It's an insane announcement. It's absolutely huge. I can't wait to let you all know a little bit later today in a few more hours. But that's going to be it for the video. Don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe as I said. And let me know what you think as always in the comments down below. See you in the next one, agents. Goodbye.